ਸਤਿ ਸ਼੍ਰੀ ਅਕਾਲ ਜੀ। ਜਿਵੇਂ ਕਿ ਤੁਹਾਨੂੰ ਦੱਸ ਰਹੇ ਹੋਗੇ ਇਸ ਟਾਈਮ ਜੋ ਤਸਵੀਰਾਂ ਮੇਰੇ ਪਿੱਛੇ ਤੁਹਾਨੂੰ ਦਿਸ ਰਹੀਆਂ ਆ, ਅੱਜ ਅਸੀਂ ਪਹੁੰਚੇ ਹੋਏ ਆ ਲੰਡਨ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ। ਲੰਡਨ ਦੇ ਵੈਸਟਮਿਨਿਸਟਰ ਦੇ ਕੋਰਟ ਦੇ ਬਾਹਰ ਅਸੀਂ ਅੱਜ ਖੜੇ ਹੋਏ ਆ। ਕਿਉਂ ਖੜੇ ਹੋਏ ਆ? ਜੇ ਅਸੀਂ ਗੱਲ ਕਰੀਏ, ਸਾਡੇ ਸਾਰੇ ਦਰਸ਼ਕਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਸ਼ਾਇਦ ਪਤਾ ਹੋਊਗਾ ਕਿ ਇੱਕ ਬਿੱਲ ਆ ਜਿਸ ਦਾ ਨਾਂ ਹੈ ਨੈਸ਼ਨੈਲਿਟੀ ਐਂਡ ਬੋਰਡਰਸ ਬਿੱਲ। ਅਤੇ ਕਾਫੀ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਸਾਡੇ ਦਰਸ਼ਕ ਸੀ, ਜਦੋਂ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਪਤਾ ਲੱਗਿਆ ਕਿ ਉਹ ਬਿੱਲ ਅਸਲ ਵਿੱਚ ਕੀ ਹੈ ਅਤੇ ਸਾਡੇ ਲਈ ਉਹਦਾ ਕੀ ਨਤੀਜਾ ਹੋ ਸਕਦਾ ਹੈ, ਕਾਫੀ ਸਾਡੇ ਦਰਸ਼ਕ ਪਰੇਸ਼ਾਨ ਸੀ। ਅਤੇ ਕਾਫੀ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਕਹਿ ਸਕਦੇ ਸਾਡੇ ਕਮਿਊਨਿਟੀ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਕਾਫੀ ਲੋਕ ਚਾਹੁੰਦੇ ਸੀ ਕਿ ਇਸ ਮਸਲੇ 'ਤੇ ਗੱਲਬਾਤ ਹੋਵੇ। ਅਤੇ ਅੱਜ ਅਸੀਂ ਪਹੁੰਚੇ ਹੋਏ ਆ ਵੈਸਟਮਿਨਿਸਟਰ ਕੋਰਟ ਦੇ ਬਾਹਰ, ਕਿਉਂਕਿ ਇੱਥੇ ਵੱਖਰੇ ਵੱਖਰੇ ਕਮਿਊਨਿਟੀ ਦੇ ਲੋਕ ਜੁੜੇ ਹੋਏ ਆ ਅਤੇ ਇਸ ਬਿੱਲ 'ਤੇ ਗੱਲਬਾਤ ਕਰ ਰਹੇ ਆ। ਜਿਵੇਂ ਕਿ ਮੈਂ ਗੱਲ ਕਰ ਰਹੀ ਆ, ਇਸ ਟਾਈਮ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਉਹ ਬਿੱਲ ਆ ਉਹ ਹਾਊਸ ਆਫ ਲੋਰਡਸ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਪਹੁੰਚ ਚੁੱਕੇ ਅਤੇ ਹੁਣ ਇਸ ਟਾਈਮ ਕਮੇਟੀ ਸਟੇਜ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਉਹ ਪਹੁੰਚਿਆ ਹੋਇਆ ਆ। ਅਤੇ ਇਸ ਦਾ ਇਹ ਮਤਲਬ ਆ, ਇਸ ਸਟੇਜ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਇਹ ਚਾਂਸ ਆ ਕਿ ਜੇ ਕਿਸੇ ਪੀੜ ਨੂੰ ਲੱਗੇ ਜਾਂ ਜੇ ਕਿਸੇ ਨੂੰ ਲੱਗੇ ਕਿ ਇਸ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਬਿੱਲ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਕੁਝ ਗਲਤੀਆਂ ਹੈ ਅਤੇ ਇਸ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਸੁਧਾਰ ਲੈ ਕੇ ਆਉਣਾ ਚਾਹੀਦਾ ਆ, ਇਹ ਹੁਣ ਇਸ ਟਾਈਮ ਉਹਦਾ ਮੌਕਾ ਆ ਕਿ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਹਾਊਸ ਆਫ ਲੋਰਡਸ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਅਫੀਸ਼ੀਅਲਸ ਹੈਗੇ ਆ ਉਹ ਉਸ 'ਤੇ ਗੱਲਬਾਤ ਕਰ ਸਕਣ। ਅਤੇ ਅੱਜ ਅਸੀਂ ਪਹੁੰਚੇ ਹੋਏ ਆ ਤਾਂ ਕਿ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਉਹ ਪੀਐਸ ਬੈਠੇ ਹੋਏ ਆ, ਉਹਨਾਂ ਕੋਲ ਹੁਣ ਇਸ ਟਾਈਮ ਚਾਂਸ ਹੈਗਾ ਆ ਕਿ ਉਹ ਇਸ ਦੇ ਵਿਰੋਧ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਕਲੋਜ਼ 9 ਹੈ, ਸਪੈਸੀਫਿਕਲੀ ਕਲੋਜ਼ 9 ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਜਿਸ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਲਿਖਿਆ ਹੋਇਆ ਆ ਕਿ ਤੁਹਾਡਾ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਸਿਟੀਜ਼ਨਸ਼ਿਪ ਉਹ ਤੁਹਾਡੇ ਤੋਂ ਖੋ ਸਕਦੇ ਆ ਬਿਨਾਂ ਨੋਟਿਸ ਤੋਂ। ਸੋ ਸਾਡੀ ਇਹ ਕੋਸ਼ਿਸ਼ ਆ, ਹਰ ਕਮਿਊਨਿਟੀ ਦੇ ਲੋਕ ਪਹੁੰਚੇ ਹੋਏ ਆ ਇੱਥੇ ਇਸ 'ਤੇ ਗੱਲਬਾਤ ਕਰਨ ਲਈ ਅਤੇ ਪ੍ਰਚਾਰ ਕਰਨ ਲਈ। ਸੋ ਅੱਜ ਤੁਹਾਨੂੰ ਅਸੀਂ ਗੱਲਾਂ ਬਾਤਾਂ ਕਰਾਂਗੇ ਕੁਝ ਲੋਕਾਂ ਦੇ ਨਾਲ, ਕੁਝ ਲੋਕੀ ਜੋ ਜੁੜੇ ਹੋਏ ਆ ਡਿਫਰੈਂਟ ਆਰਗੇਨਾਈਜੇਸ਼ਨਸ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ, ਅਤੇ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਲੋਕੀ ਡਿਫਰੈਂਟ ਕਮਿਊਨਿਟੀ ਦੇ ਹੈਗੇ ਆ ਅਤੇ ਉਸ 'ਤੇ ਗੱਲਬਾਤ ਅਸੀਂ ਕਰੂਗੇ, ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨਾਲ ਗੱਲਬਾਤ ਕਰਾਂਗੇ, ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦੇ ਵਿਚਾਰ ਲਓਗੇ ਅਤੇ ਗਾਂ ਦੀ ਗਾਂ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਸਪੀਚਿਸ ਦਿੱਤੇ ਜਾ ਰਹੇ ਆ ਉਹ ਵੀ ਤੁਹਾਨੂੰ ਦਿਖਾਓਗੇ ਇਸ ਪ੍ਰੋਗਰਾਮ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ। ਸੋ ਜ਼ਰੂਰ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਸਾਡੇ ਨਾਲ ਜੁੜਨਾ ਅਤੇ ਸੁਣੋ ਸਾਰੇ ਜਾਣੇ ਕੀ ਕਹਿ ਰਹੇ ਆ। So today we are with Delia Mathis, who is from the Black Lives Matter coalition, and today we're going to talk with her and ask her what her opinions are on the Nationality and Borders Bill that could this time be passed. So what is your opinion on this whole Nationality and Borders Bill?
I mean, if you remember the Windrush scandal, and this is like Windrush on steroids.
Yeah.
I mean, the government just keeps finding different ways to attack our communities, black and brown communities, disproportionately, and this is just another racist attack. This is actually a really evil bill. This surpasses what they did with Windrush. This surpasses all of their racist bills before. This is actually the worst. The idea that if you weren't born in this country and you've had your citizenship for a long time, if you have one parent who was born in another country, that they can just deport you without following the normal processes is just outrageous. And to think that this is a government that likes to interfere in other countries' business, you know, in the Middle East, all over the world, they like to interfere in other countries' business. And they talk about human rights abuses. Well, what is this? This is the biggest human rights abuse, and they have no shame. They need to get their own house in order, stop interfering in other countries' business, and remove themselves and stop trying to put through these fascist and very racist bills.
What I want to talk about as well, if you talk about the policing bill and possible changes that could be made to the Human Rights Act, and now this bill, the Nationality and Borders Bill. Britain, you could say, prides itself on its democracy. Do you think in this day and age today, now it is 2022, do you think we are being taken away from the good democracy that Britain has always known itself to be?
I think the police bill, just like the Nationality and Borders Bill, is a racist, fascist bill. You know, it talks about things like asking for permission from the state to protest against the state. How can you ask the state for permission to protest? They will just say no. It talks about the volume of protests and how they can refuse the right to protest based on the amount of noise that you're making. But it's not only a human right. There's history behind protesting. History has been made. Some of the biggest justices that we have won throughout history, hundreds of years, have been won by direct action and protest. To have that right taken away, it is absolutely outrageous. They talk about North Korea as if, you know, the government there is just completely outrageous and against human rights, but this is like North Korean style politics. You know, people won't be allowed to protest. That's our voices being stripped away. And I think now's the time for everyone to unite. All communities can unite around these issues, both the policing bill, because we cannot allow a government to take away our voices, which is actually what they're trying to do.
I think if we talk about all of our communities in general, I think if we unite and make our communities aware on this and perhaps encourage them to make stands on these issues, I do feel like these bills are things that we can tackle if we all work together. And if we talk about today, the gathering that that is currently with everyone that's reached here today, I feel like this is an example that if we unite, understand and educate each other, these things we can fight. But I feel like now it is time for every individual person to encourage their community and encourage each other to stand up on these matters and not just to ignore them, because if we continue to ignore them, it's going to continue to, these new bills are just going to keep on coming, and it's going to keep on creating problems for the future generation. In the last, is there anything you'd like to say to our viewers?
I just think with exactly what you just said, we formed a coalition, Citizens is a Right Coalition, and that is groups from different backgrounds, different politics, a lot of which you've heard speak here today. And we've had many different organisations from different backgrounds, communities. It's been very community-led, from black and brown voices leading the debate and the protest today. And that's what we need to build on going forward. And we need to call for a day of action. I would like it to be in March. Let's see what happens, but we definitely need to have a national day of action on a weekend day where we can get our communities out on the street.
In the last, there's another thing that's just come that I'm kind of feeling. Why is it that MPs who have perhaps voted, why are they not getting involved in our projects like this? What do you think? Why is it they don't want to speak? They just want to make that little Twitter post, but they don't want to actually be there on ground level. Because if we talk about it, being on ground level and fighting for these things is very, very important. But I'm kind of, you could say, disheartened to see that there's no MPs, especially if we talk about the police. A couple of hours ago, they came up to us and said, can you put it down? Why? This concerns everyone, and I think it's kind of disheartening to see that MPs are not here. They can put the Twitter post up, leave the 2 or 3 lines comment in Parliament, but they don't want to be on the ground level fighting like we are today.
Well, we've had a couple of MPs earlier on. We had Bel Rabiro Addy and we had Richard Bergen. And they're the kind of MPs that you would expect to see at a thing like this. Unfortunately, politicians have been spoilt by us for a long time. We've got a two-party system that doesn't work for anybody. So it's either vote this party or vote that one. And we're now in a situation where they're both more or less the same. So we have an opposition that doesn't want to protest or say anything against the government because it wants to replace it by being the same as it. And we have a fascist government. We need to do better in our communities. We need to do what they did in America. We may not like the candidate that kicked out Trump, but you saw how communities got behind a candidate and showed their electoral strength. We need to do the same here. If the two-party system isn't working for us, we need to find candidates that are. And until we start to do that, there'll be no change in Parliament. We need grassroots MPs that are prepared to come out on the street and shout and fight with the people. And unfortunately, they're too busy protecting their own pay packets and being in with the leadership that doesn't care about people. So we need to do better.
Thank you so much for speaking with us today. Hopefully we'll meet soon and do a programme very, very soon and perhaps create more awareness on this bill and other issues that concern all of our community. So thank you so much for speaking with me today. Thank you.
So my name is Marvina Newton. I am from Black Lives Matter Leeds, the Kill the Bill Coalition, who just had this amazing win around the 14th Amendment being thrown out from the House of Lords, and also United for Black Lives. I'm here today to stand in solidarity with my Sikh brothers and sisters to make sure that this racist bill that is used to oppress us as migrants does not go through. It is killed in its footstep.
What I want to ask you is, how do you feel if this bill is passed and no changes are made? How do you think this is going to affect your community specifically?
So I'm Nigerian, I'm black, so my African brothers and sisters, the one thing is that I don't even want to just look at it from my African brothers and sisters, so my brothers and sisters who are minorities from brown and from Pakistan, Ethiopia, wherever you're from, who are going to be affected by this, who are going to be made stateless by fighting an oppressive government. I want to be able to make sure that we make it ungovernable. So when we see our brothers and sisters are being targeted and attacked, what do? We send a message and we all turn up and we block the van. They can't take us. And if we keep doing that over and over again and showing solidarity, because too long have we stayed in our silo. I want everybody to listen to this. It doesn't matter whether you're black or brown or white. This is the time that if you say you care about your brothers and sisters, spiritually, mentally, whatever it is, our ancestors have been through too much for us to be where we are. Shame on you, Pretty Patel. Let me say, shame on you, Pretty Patel. Your ancestors did so much for you to be able to be in this country. So now you're sitting with the big boys and you've forgotten where you come from. Let's remember that. We remember this day that you've oppressed those who actually built and fought for you to be there. I can say this as a woman of color and unapologetically, you're looking pretty fascist, darling. And not all skin folks are keen folks. And we need to be teaching people that. So now we see you. We know it's an election year. People use your power.
I think if we talk about all the communities uniting, I think for every community, I think the biggest thing to understand is that first, before we belong to any community, we are human first. And as a human, it is our responsibility to stand with each other. And what my next question is, if we talk about Britain, Britain is very proud of its democracy. If we talk about the policing bill and the possible changes to the Human Rights Act, do you think Britain is going away from its democracy? What's your opinions on this?
So most of us that moved into this country, we moved away from some of our countries because we thought it was corrupt. Actually, it wasn't. It was the colonial masters who were British that came to our country and caused more divide than build it. Now, democracy is dying in this country. Democracy is for those who have money and power and those who are in the ivory tower. This is why we need a people's parliament. People's parliament is me and you coming together and challenging this democracy because they don't stand for our people. And this is the biggest message I want everybody to hear. This is a time that we need to be united because the police and crime sentencing bill will target our community more. They will stop and search black and brown boys and girls more. They will be able to come into our communities. Now they can't use some of that. Now they're coming with the Nationality and Borders bill. So it's like, how many traps do you want to set for us to catch us? If they're letting us know they don't want us here.
They don't want us. It's making ethnic minorities feel unwelcome.
Second-class citizens.
Yes, that's it, definitely. If we talk about, it's kind of like they want to prove the fact that you are lower than us.
My sister, do you know what? My sister, as you're saying this, as a mother that have given birth to children that with melanated brown skin, there's no way I'm going to go to my grave knowing that I haven't done everything to fight. They are not second-class citizens. In fact, Great Britain will not be great without them. And when you then think, they say, let's go back to where we came from. Let's take everything we brought. What do you have? Potato. Let's just call it a spade. And sorry to those who are working class, who also are going to be attacked by this bill. I know that this is going to affect you too. So if you're going to make someone stateless and you make someone like us stateless, what would happen to a white person too? Where are you going to send them to?
That's it. And the thing is, it's completely targeting, I would say, ethnic minorities. That's the whole base of this bill. We talk about, I've heard different people say, oh, the bill is only that one thing, but that one thing makes a very big difference.
One thing that undoes all the work of the UN and the Human Rights Act. One thing that actually takes our democracy away. One thing that says me and you that are here now fighting for this can get deported without someone even asking us. The things that you can get your nationality stripped off you without knowing. So you could have gone home, holiday, time to come back. You can't enter the country. That's how serious this thing is. So for people that are not thinking this is about them, protest it is about all of us. So imagine now you have a minor offense now, so you're driving. And we know as a young age, sometimes you do stupid things and you might get a criminal record. So even now, just you getting a criminal record may mean that they could take your nationality. Part of this bill. People don't even know that.
I think, you know what another thing is, if we talk about media, the mainstream media channels, they're not highlighting the depth of this.
Because it's owned by them. It's owned. See, free the press is a big conversation we need to be talking about. When the oppressor write the stories, the victims will become the villains. And this is what they're doing. So they have the money, they own the media, they own everything. So they would say, I don't want you to talk about this matter. They tell us that our countries are corrupt. Great Britain is the most corrupt place to be in. They give you one rule for them, and another rule for us. When all of us were sitting and couldn't go out, so I'm from West Yorkshire, just before Ramadan, I remembered they actually locked down and told Bradford that they couldn't go out. That was a lot of my brothers and sisters that couldn't go and celebrate. But guess what they were doing? They were the Queen's husband dies a day before the funeral. They were having a party. That means they were even exposing the Queen to COVID in this process. So like, let's talk about it. But then, how many of us got fined last year? A lot of our communities got fined, and this is why we need to make sure we talk loud and make sure it changes. But I love what your community, I love what this channel is doing. So amplify the voice of marginalized community. Various people are here. So we've got Black Lives Matter, we've got Sikh, we've got Muslim brothers and sisters, we've got Jewish brothers and sisters. Everybody is here. And you got Kill the Bill now. You got us. We're ready to support you and amplify your voices. But it's a two-way street. Let's make sure we do this together moving forward.
We're going to do this together. We're going to win this battle together. And hopefully we'll meet up soon. Today we are here with Kerry Bullivan, who's from quite a renowned group, if we talk about it, Cage. I'm quite sure that you guys have all heard about it. Cage is an organisation that deals with a lot of extradition cases. When anyone's citizenship is being stripped of them, Cage is an organisation that deals with it. And we're just going to briefly know from Kerry, what is it that they do in depth?
So often, a lot of the time, when people get their citizenship removed, they don't know what to do. It's an unusual circumstance for everybody, and so situation for everybody, and they might not even have lawyers, they might not have any expertise or knowledge on this area. So they come to Cage, and we will assist them with getting them lawyers, supporting the family emotionally, and making sure that they're in the best position they can to fight for their rights. One of the things that a lot of people don't realise about this is when you get your citizenship stripped, often it's not just leaving you stateless, but often you can even be killed immediately after. So what we've seen in many, many cases is immediately after a citizenship stripping, there's a drone strike by America or other allied nations that then kills the person, and the family have no recourse to British justice because their family member had been stripped before the drone strike. And we've even seen with things like with Mehdi Hashi, where people have had their citizenship stripped and then been tortured in black site prisons, like in Djibouti. So this is a really important issue, and getting a citizenship stripped is often just the first step in a raft of things that come afterwards, which really are a nightmare. So if somebody is entitled to another citizenship, not even if they have it, but just entitled to it. So like my children are entitled to Dutch citizenship through their mother. They can have their citizenship stripped. Often this leaves the person stateless and stuck away from the only country that they've lived in and known. Now, at the very least, that leaves you in a precarious situation where you're often stateless and unable to travel back to see your family, your wife, children, perhaps. But in some cases, it goes even worse than that, that special forces will be sent in immediately afterwards, and people are kidnapped and put on rendition flights and then taken to black site prisons where they're in a legal limbo and then tortured by regimes friendly to America. And in the worst cases, we've seen people like literally killed and murdered in drone strikes in countries like Pakistan in the days after they've had their citizenship stripped.
Thank you so much. And I just want to ask you here, if you talk about this Nationality and Borders Bill, other than the Clause 9 that talks about citizenship being stripped without any notice, is there any other concern you guys feel that should be raised? What other clauses do you think raise a concern?
So for us in our work and our line of work, the main thing that we end up dealing with is the citizenship stripping and this extension of that power in Clause 9. Obviously we stand in solidarity with all of the organisations that are working for immigrant rights and trying to protect the rights of people who don't want to be deported or stopped from entering the country. And we believe in solidarity and supporting those rights. But our remit ends up being very closely around the war on terror, and therefore like we mainly end up speaking and working on the citizenship stripping, because if you're deemed in a secret court with no trial, with no jury, to be not conducive to the public good, then you're at risk.
And what another thing I want to talk to you about is Britain. Britain is very, you could say, renowned for its democracy. You could say British people, we used to, or perhaps you could say we used to, we pride ourselves for our democracy. We believe that Britain is the best place to live in. But if we talk about the recent events, if we talk about the policing bill, the perhaps changes that could be made to the Human Rights Act, and this Nationality and Borders Bill, do you think the current leaders, the current party that, of course, that has majority seats in the government, do you think they are taking us away from Britain being a very, very good democracy?
Look, 20 years ago, Muazzam Beg, one of the leaders within Cage, was being held in Guantanamo Bay. His father came out with a simple call. His father came out and campaigned at events like this and said, if my son is guilty, put him on trial and send him to prison. If he's innocent, release him. Give him that trial. And relatively speaking, in a short space of time, Muazzam, the pressure built on the government, and Muazzam was released and brought home and freed because he was an innocent man being held with no reason. Now, 20 years later, in the new Guantanamo, we have children being held in camps, being stripped of their citizenship, and no one is taking any action to bring children out of camps back home. That is what 20 years of a war on terror, 20 years of dehumanization will do to a people, where now we can't even get children that are being shot at in the camps in recent fighting, just in the past few days, and we can't get them out of those camps. Children.
Very, very, you could say, it's a cause for concern for every individual, because today, or perhaps in the next couple of days, or perhaps in the next couple of months, or the next couple of years, it affects us. And I think what a big thing that we need to realise, every individual in the UK, is that I don't think we are taking to heart what the actual, you could say, what this can mean for every single person. So thank you so much for speaking with us. And before we go, is there anything you'd like to say last to all of our viewers at the moment?
I think, firstly, I just really want to say thank you for the solidarity of your organisation and your movements in getting involved. And we see a lot of these events, and that's really, really powerful. And I'm so glad that we can all be standing together. And thank you very much. Thank you for having me on.
Thank you so much for talking to us, and thank you. Hopefully we'll meet soon. Thank you. So today here we're going to speak to Mr. Gurpreet Anand, who is from the Sikh Council UK, and we're going to know what his opinions are. So first of all, I'd like to welcome you. Thank you for speaking with us today, and I want to ask you, if we talk about this bill, everyone here has gathered to talk about the Nationality and Borders Bill. We are both from the same community, and a lot of the people that are probably going to be watching this belong to our community. What is your message to them about this bill? How does it concern us? Why is this our problem as much as it is everyone else's who has reached here today?
The problem with this bill is it's fundamentally racist. The Sikh community needs to wake up. We are known to oppose oppressive laws. In India, the Sikh community stood up against the farm laws and the farm bills. Because of us being natural people who protest, who stand up for rights, stand up for our rights, the rights of others, we become targets of governments. This bill gives another tool to the government to oppress people and to silence them. So if I am challenging the farmers' bills, and the Indian government says, hey, we don't like Gurpreet Singh Anand in the UK challenging our farmers' laws. Who's he to tell us what to do? You know, aite aake gal karo. Well, the new change in the Borders Bill allows for Bavini Patel to remove my citizenship as a UK citizen. I'm born and brought up in the UK, but she can remove my citizenship for diplomatic reasons. So that could be a trade deal. So for diplomatic reasons, my citizenship is removed. The Indian government happily says, oh, Gurpreet is an Indian citizen. Here's his passport. We printed it up the other day. You know, all of a sudden, I'm being renditioned out to India to face questioning for my opposition of some Indian laws. So it creates a mechanism by which you can be removed from the country outside of any extradition process, outside of you having any rights to appeal, outside of any court hearing, because the government doesn't even have to give you notice. Oh, police aange tuade darwaze te tuanu chuk ke le jaange. Our community needs to wake up. This is serious. This affects us all. We all know how matters work in India, that very quickly, ਤੁਹਾਡਾ ਕੋਈ ਝਗੜਾ ਚੱਲ ਰਿਹਾ ਤੁਹਾਡੇ ਭਰਾ ਨਾਲ ਉਹ ਤੁਹਾਡਾ ਕੇਸ ਚਲਾ ਦੇਗਾ. How quickly can that case become something that you are extradited on, or, well, not even extradited now, removed, citizenship removed, because you're on a list of people who might help give a sweetener for a trade deal?
Especially if we talk about the West Midlands 3 and of course their extradition back to India. Luckily we are very, very lucky that they weren't sent back, but perhaps if this case was now to come again forward, perhaps if they supposedly said that they had new evidence, there was a chance that they could be sent back, or their citizenship could have been stripped off them without any notice, or without perhaps legally challenging it, or without any of the legal procedures that are usually in place. So this does affect our community as much as it affects everyone else's. And here I want to ask, do you think, if we talk about this bill, do you think this is from the government to kind of target, you could say, ethnic minorities? What's your opinions on this? Because a lot of people that are from different ethnic communities, they feel as though this bill is specifically just to target our communities and make them feel as though they are second-class citizens. And I feel like this is very, very important to highlight, because a lot of our ancestors have come back from different countries here just for our better life, so that we get the first-class citizenship treatment. What's your opinions on this?
This absolutely makes ethnic minorities into second-class citizens. My citizenship would be worth less than someone else's. It's not just ethnic minorities. This could be anyone, French, Irish, anyone who's from a different background in this country. I'm glad you brought up the case of the West Midlands 3. What I would like to point out to the Sangat is that with the West Midlands 3, they were able to at least have a court hearing. They wouldn't have that with this. And not only that, the West Midlands 3 were British citizens. But the papers served by the Indians said they were Indian citizens. ਉਹ ਤੁਹਾਨੂੰ ਕੀ ਦੱਸਦਾ ਹੈ? ਇਹ ਤੁਹਾਡੇ ਲਈ problem ਬਣਨ ਲੱਗਾ. That your citizenship will be removed. The Indians will very quickly say, hey, they actually are citizens. And you're on a plane without any due process. The tick boxes in the Home Office are done, you're being deported.
Thank you so much for speaking with us today, and hopefully we will meet very, very soon and to perhaps talk more on these issues and perhaps other issues. So thank you so much for speaking with us today.
Absolutely. I'm really honored to be interviewed, and I would like to once again remind all the Sikh community to see Otto. You cannot be sleeping on this one. This is serious. This is one of the biggest threats we're facing in a generation in the UK.
Thank you so much for speaking with us.
Thank you.
So here today we're with Naomi, and of course, as you know, we are here to talk about the bill. There's quite a big gathering here today voicing their opinions on the bill that has been passed, and specifically explaining what their concerns are regarding Clause 9 of the Nationality and Borders Bill. So here we are with Naomi from the Jewish Voice for Labour, and we're going to speak to her and ask her first, Naomi, what is your opinion on this whole bill, and how does this affect your community?
Okay, well, first of all, the bill, thank goodness, has not yet been passed, but we're very frightened that it will be. I think you'll find that most of the groups here, certainly mine, we want to see the whole thing scrapped because it's part of a raft of really nasty racist legislation that we're all quite frightened of, racist and dictatorial. Clause 9 is obviously very significant because it threatens that citizenship can be stripped without the individual concerned even knowing about it.
Legally challenge it?
No chance to appeal or anything. So this is terrifying for all people from racialized communities in this country. Anybody who has any sort of family background from outside the borders of the UK, and that applies to huge numbers of British people, British citizens. But for us, it's because most of us we're Jewish, so all our parents, grandparents are refugees or the children of refugees. That's how we came to be here. In my case, my granny was the last of my 4 grandparents who came over from Eastern Europe in 1903. And in 1905, I don't know if your viewers will know this, there was a bill introduced in this country called the Aliens Act, which blocked further Jewish refugees from coming. So we know how this racist legislation can affect people fleeing, whether it's persecution or poverty or war or whatever. People need refuge in wealthy countries like this. And that's what we're here to protest about.
Definitely. So So what I want to ask you is, Naomi, what do you think that this bill, of course, we know that it concerns, especially Clause 9, it concerns those who, of course, belong to a racial background. Do you think this has been specifically made, this clause, just to target those that are from different ethnicities? How do you feel about it? Because I know there's many communities that feel as though this bill it is to target the ethnic minorities within this country, and I know then people that do belong to those that are known as a minority, they feel as though this bill, if it is passed, it will class them as second-class citizens. What's your whole opinion on this?
I think there's no doubt about that. I think you're absolutely right. I think not only second-class citizens, but it means that they are not secure and safe in this country anymore. They're not regarded as really belonging. So there'll be all sorts of fine words about, oh yes, we have equality and diversity in this country. But when it comes down to it, people who are not, I don't know, people who are not what? Because the Anglo-Saxon people, the whole history of these islands is one of migration. So it is very hypocritical. But there is this sense that people who are represented by this government feel that the rest of us are some sort of other that doesn't deserve to be here. And if they can suppress us, prevent our right to dissent, to be politically in opposition, they will find a way. So yes, I do think it's racist. I do think it threatens particularly people of colour with becoming second-class citizens. And it says you're not welcome here. It's terrible.
Thank you, Naomi, for talking to us about what your thoughts are and how your community specifically feels about it. Thank you so much, Naomi. Hopefully we'll meet soon. Thank you.
I wish you and your viewers a happy day. Cheers.
So right now, here we are with Bavini Patel from Kill the Bill, and we're going to speak to her about what her opinions are regarding the Nationality and Borders Bill. So Bavini, thank you so much for speaking with us today. And what are your opinions on the Nationality and Borders Bill?
So I'm also Extinction Rebellion, and for me, the Nationalities and Borders Bill is part of a raft of bills that are coming out, and the first one that's been out of the block is the police bill. And why it's important that our communities understand the importance of the police bill is because the police bill effectively takes away our ability to mobilize and come on the streets. So we must be fighting that bill alongside the Nationality Border Bill, because we can never have a voice and mobilize if we don't stop the police bill as well, right? So it's interlinked, because one without the other means we don't get to have a voice. And the Nationalities and Borders Bill, for me, is really hard, because I have been in this country and this is my home. And the idea that they are likely and trying to take my home away from me and make me stateless. And not just me, but my parents, my grandparents, right? So that is, they are effectively removing the entire DNA of a community like mine from this country. And I think what I found most is that when I speak to my community members, they don't believe me. And we need to really get our communities to really face the truth of what's happening, because if we don't do something now, afterwards, when they first start taking a group of our community, then it's going to be so much harder, and we'll have to see so many more tears. So it's better that we find the courage to come to the streets now and make sure this bill doesn't pass, so that we protect not just the generations that are here, but the future generations that are going to come.
And what I want to know is, what do you think? Do you think this bill, Nationality and Borders Bill, what is the way we can tackle it? Of course, we're here today, we're in a gathering, but what more can we do? Because there is a lot more we can be doing. So what, in your own opinion, what more could we be doing to tackle this issue?
So number one, we have to educate ourselves and our community. We really must all be aware of this bill. And then number two is listen to your community members. When they say, right, we are all coming and we're all going to march, come and march with them. Number three is that to email your lords and the MPs, right? Every email makes a difference, right? So if you go to killthebill_official on Twitter, Facebook, Insta, there is a website page with a template of the letter. So you just copy and paste it with the list of emails of the people, the lords and the MPs that you need to email. Now, when we did this for the police bill, right? Earlier this year, 2,000 plus emails went, and we managed to stop 14 amendments because we did a national campaign making sure. So we have to do all of it, not one of it. We have to we have to educate our community, we have to come to the streets, and we have to email the Lords and MPs. And we do not stop until we get the result we need.
Thank you so much for speaking with us today, and hopefully we will work together, and perhaps hopefully someone who's watching our program at this point does understand how important it is that we educate ourselves and get together when these type of events are happening. So thank you so much, Bavini. Thank you
So much.
Yeah, we're going to speak to Masood. He's from the Islamic Human Rights Commission, and we're going to ask him what his opinions are and how is his community feeling about this nationality and borders bill. So Masood, thank you for speaking with us today, and I would like to start off by asking you, how is the Muslim brother community feeling about this? How are they feeling about this?
Well, this is really, the Islamophobia is at the height of it. We had another report that showed that, overwhelming majority of people have a different opinion with Muslim, very prejudicial, and especially when it comes to upper and middle class.
Yeah.
And, within the Conservative Party. Among all this, we are now facing a situation that the colonial ideology of depriving us of equal citizenship. That means that, we who are black, who come from different background and different heritage, we are becoming second-class citizens, and in some ways subject to the white person within our society. This is divide and rule. This is actually creating concept of a modernization and blaming them, i.e. the black community for for the ills of our
It's alright. We've had a long day here today.
shouting too much. For the ills of our society, we have to combat that. This is not about Muslim, non-Muslim. This is not even about white and non-white. Once these divisions and this hatred settles in the heart of the society and becomes acceptable, then the whole society is going to be in trouble. Look what happened in former Yugoslavia. Look what happened in Nazi Germany. Anywhere that this sort of divisions and modernization was used, created genocide, ethnic cleansing, and we need to tackle it now before it becomes much worse.
If you talk about the bills that have been coming up in the past couple of months, from the policing bill to this bill to perhaps the possible changes in the Human Rights Act, which is the issue, which is a very, very big issue for all of us, I feel like there is going to be more and more bills coming out that are similar to these, and that are going to make people that are from different ethnic communities feel like second-class citizens. What I want to ask you is, Britain is very, very known for its democracy. British people, we pride ourselves on our democracy. But if we talk about the raft of bills that are coming up from the policing bill, possible changes to the Human Rights Act, and the Nationality and Borders Bill, do you think Britain is being taken away from its democracy by its current leaders?
I think there is a trend, not just in Britain, but in the Western Europe, that we are sleepwalking into fascism.
Yes.
We are sleepwalking to popularism, which actually politicians who have got no solution for our real issues like economy, employment, etc., they use this, what I was saying, this organization to blame a group of people for all the ills of the society, and then mobilize the rest of people on behind them. Not mobilizing them on a good policy, but mobilizing them on prejudice, on division. And unfortunately, we see that happen at the Trump time, and it's happening even now in the United States. We are seeing it happening here at the time of the Brexit, and legislation after legislation. I would say that from 1990 onwards, we are seeing legislation which are not making us safer, but legislation that making us sort of more living in a fascist society where ministers and the governments and the police are making decisions for us and saying it's for your own good.
Yeah.
And that actually is very dangerous. We are, what is happening now, if we sort of talked about it 20 years ago, people would have said this could never happen in Britain. But it's happening in Britain, it's happening in France, it's happening in the United States, and we are sleepwalking into a fascist, divisional sort of politics which divides us, and sort of use prejudices, use isms to actually isolate one group of people and tell the rest of them that you are the masters. This has to stop.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you, Masad, for speaking with us today. And is there anything else you'd like to say in the end?
No, I think I'd like to sort of say that to my sort of fellow countrymen who are from the white community.
Yeah.
This is not about white and black.
Yes.
This is actually us losing the values that actually make all of us safer and creates a society that we could all be part of it to make it better for us.
I think what it is now is the time to realise before we belong to any community, before we belong to any religion, we are human first. And on that basis, I do believe that it is vital that we stand with each other and support each other through this. Anything else you'd like to say?
No, thank you.
Thank you so much for speaking with us today.
Thank you.
I mean, this bill, it is a continuation of the racist conditions that we live under. I've been thinking a lot about how the government, from the very top, the messages that they've put out are all about hatred. And obviously it's really unpredictable how hatred works. And I was making connections between some of the hateful rhetoric that they propagate and the internalized racism that my family also suffer with. To the extent where they're migrants themselves. You know, we know people who are political refugees and they have no sympathy for people who are crossing the channel, people who have undocumented status, even though they've been through something themselves.
Especially through this bill, we can say this is proof that the government have no sympathy with those people who are coming here, and especially those people who are already here. They are trying their best to make them feel unwelcome. Especially if we talk about this bill, what's your opinion? Do you think this is something that is targeting ethnic minorities?
Absolutely. All legislation, the minoritized communities are at the sharp end of it, such as with the policing bill. We know that Gypsy, Roma and Traveller communities are having to deal with extra clauses and extra legislation that means that it criminalizes trespass and it means it criminalizes their way of life, right? And we know that it's not just something that the government confined to people who are foreign born or making passage here, but people who are born here. I don't just mean minoritized people in terms of their ethnicity, but see how the government treats rough sleepers, see how the government treats young people, especially young black people, and the disproportionality of stop and search. This is not a government that they will not stop at anything to divide our communities as much as possible, and we know that this is the most fascist government in living memory.
I just wanted to ask you, if we talk about this bill, do you think that the government are trying their very best to rush this bill through to be passed? Do you think? What's your opinion?
I think that there's so many bits of legislation that they're trying to pass that I can't keep up. I'm just trying to actually stand here because there's friends of mine who can't come, friends of mine who are doing this campaigning for a shoestring, and trying to understand more clauses beyond clause 9 of this Borders Bill alone, and I just can't wrap my head around it.
Do you think the government are somewhat afraid that if they do give the time for people to, of course, get to know about this bill, that they will have to face media pressure and public pressure, which could perhaps stop them from passing this bill? Do you think this is what's currently?
I think it's beyond a doubt. It's beyond a doubt, and it's so obvious because this is the government that don't want to see us. They don't want to know us. They don't want to. They want as little to do with our lives as possible, and because of that, that's why they're passing bill after bill without the proper parliamentary scrutiny. Yesterday we saw that the Court of Appeal actually said that this is unlawful, so they ignored the advice of their own lawyers because they believe that they can get away with it. And this is it's not just this government, but it's successive governments in the past. So, I mean, whatever they feel that they can get away with, they will, and that's exactly why we have to rise and organise. And our job is never finished.
Thank you so much, How you for
Thank you
joining
so
us.
My name is Wayman Bennett, which is spelled Weyman, Bennett, Bennett, and I'm the Joint National Convener for Stand Up to Racism.
Yeah. Wayman, what is your whole opinion on this bill? Specifically, if we talk about clause 9 of this bill, this is a concern for everyone. What is your whole opinion on clause 9 within this bill?
The bill's divide and rule, but it's going to strip 10 million citizens of a right they assume that they've got. It doesn't matter if you're born here.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter if you're born here for 4 generations.
Yeah.
If you have a family that has somebody from another country,
Yeah.
then the judicial process may not apply to you.
Yeah.
The government can strip you of a passport
Yeah.
before they do anything else,
Yeah.
and your rights will be lost.
Yeah.
So this law is a populist law
Yeah.
aimed at trying to win votes by gutter racism.
Yeah. Do you think this bill is specifically, if we talk about it, those, for example, myself, who have parents that are from a different country, this is specifically applying to us. If they feel as though we are a threat to national security, this is perhaps could be applied to us. What is your whole opinion? Do you think the whole justification that has been given to not give notice when taking someone's citizenship away is justified, or do you think this comes across a bit of like an excuse?
We should just understand it has nothing to do with national security. Any crime,
Yeah.
yeah. Which could be referred to the Home Office
Yeah.
before judicial committee could lead to you being thrown out of this country. Driving offences,
Yeah.
offences in fraud, anything.
Yeah.
And you could lose your citizenship, and you could have been born here, you could have been here for generations,
Yeah.
and it'd be stripped. But to be honest, it'll only be applied to people that are probably non-white.
Yeah.
Because the assumption is
Yeah.
that you can't
Yeah.
really be British,
Yeah.
which is something which we've never had.
Yeah, definitely.
We've never had this, and that's why people have to understand that this bill is very dangerous.
Yeah.
They used to target people from France, Brexit stuff, but now they
Yeah.
can't find that, so they've
Yeah.
decided to go for a new enemy, and they have
Yeah.
to manufacture that.
Yeah.
And this is what this bill is about. But it
Yeah.
will have drastic impact on people's everyday life,
Yeah.
and that's why we shouldn't allow it.
Yeah, thank you so much, Wayman, for talking to us today. Hopefully, perhaps in the next 2 weeks, there might be a mass gathering regarding this bill, for Kill the Bill. So hopefully we'll see you soon then, and perhaps, hopefully we will try to promote it as much as we can. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Delighted to be here with you. This issue is so important that our future and the future of our children depends on it. Some people think that this only affects the minority, people of the color. No, this affects every single citizen in this country. Because what is happening now is the bill that they're debating right now, it's going to affect every single one of us. Why? Because it's based on a policy of divide and rule. It's based on otherization. It actually creates two-class citizenship. It's actually giving in, is rewarding the racists in our society. After the Brexit, no, this is the second thing. In this structure that they are trying to create, hierarchical structure, the white people are on top, and then different classes comes all the way down. What is means that this colonial ideology, we are subject not just to the Queen, but to the white people in our society. This is a division that, if it's not stopped, is going to strangle our society. Look the level of racism and modernization which was used at former Yugoslavia, which led to ethnic cleansing of Bosnians. This is first step towards the same direction, and we need to stop it. We need to stop it, and we need to urge every single person, black or white or any color or any background, needs to stand up, because once this demonization starts fruiting and giving fruit, the destruction will be for all of us. And we need to make sure people understand that. I urge every single person in our society to stand up This is the time to do it. This is the time to do it. We have already been sleepwalking since 2007 when the first legislation came, which resulted in 2017 of 104 people lose their nationality. Let me give you one of those cases. One of those cases, someone was accused of being a spy for a foreign government. Without him knowing, without him being notified, his nationality was taken away. When he tried to enter the country, they said, you cannot. Now, this is mind-boggling, because my understanding was if there is a spy, our government, our security will stop people leaving rather than stopping them coming in. I mean, this is bizarre. This is actually demonizing people that they don't like. This is actually fascism that the fascists of past would have been envy of. That one minister will take a pen and deny people their most fundamental right. Comrades, friends, we need to unite. We need to make sure that people understand the gravity of this legislation and stand up against it. Thank you very much.
Ami Chakrabarti is not out here with us in person, but she is with us in solidarity, and she's in that chamber, you know, doing her work for the people. And she sent me a statement to read out to you. And it goes like this. Friends, I'm sorry I'm not with you right here. I am with you in the chamber for the beginning of the Lord's Committee stage of the odious, racist and international law-breaking Nationality and Borders Bill. Thank you for being the greatest grassroots movement for our rights and freedoms and for all vital opposition to the police bill. Thank you even more for staying strong together into the next and totally related struggle against dog whistle culture war politics. Thank you for being so broad and inclusive and united. When I see the 3 yellow stripes next to the black and white hourglass, my spirits lift. Thank you for standing with refugees and other vulnerable people who can't always speak for themselves. Stay safe, strong and peaceful, but kill this